The first lantern on a quiet evening, long before the world was mapped and measured. There was a village hidden between mountains and rivers. The people of this village lived simple lives, weaving baskets, tending gardens, and telling stories beside the fire. Yet among them lingered a soft sorrow, for they carried dreams. They had forgotten dreams that once shone bright, but had slipped from memory. Like stars fading at dawn, it was said that the forgotten dreams did not vanish. Instead, they drifted into the air, invisible threads of longing and hope, searching for a vessel strong enough to hold them. That vessel came in the form of a lantern, at first glance with a wooden frame and panes of glass. But when night fell, it glowed with a light not born of fire, but of memory. The first to discover this lantern was a young traveler named Leon. He was a boy with restless eyes, who often stood at the edge of the village, gazing toward the mountains. Elian longed for a journey, though he could not explain why. One evening, as he walked by the river, he saw something shimmering in the reeds. It was the lantern dot. When he touched it, the glass warmed under his fingers, and the light inside pulsed gently, as though it had been waiting for him. Elian lifted it, and in that moment, he heard a whisper, soft, tender, and filled with longing. The voice was not his own. It was someone's forgotten dream, calling out to be remembered. The glow spread across the riverbank, casting golden ripples upon the water. The village behind him seemed hushed, as if listening. Loon felt his chest tighten, not with fear, but with wonder. He knew this lantern was no ordinary thing. It was a keeper of what people had lost within themselves. That night, Elian brought the lantern home. As he placed it beside his bed, the whispers returned stories of a woman who once dreamed of painting the sea, a child who longed to build a bridge across the valley, an old man who wished to sing beneath the stars. Each dream glimmered within the lantern, each one alive and waiting. But Elian also felt something else. The lantern did not only collect forgotten dreams, yearned to carry them onward, to release them into the world once more. As he drifted to sleep, the lantern glowed brighter, filling the room with warmth. The whispers turned into lullabies, carrying him gently into slumber. And when he woke, he knew his journey had begun. For the lantern was not meant to stay in one place. It was meant to travel, and Elian was meant to carry it. The journey begins the morning after Elian discovered the lantern. The village awoke to an unusual hush. The roosters still crowed, the fires still burned, and the river still carried its silver thread through the valley. Yet the air felt different, as if it, too, carried the glow of the strange light Elian had seen the night before. He held lantern close, keeping it wrapped in cloth, as though protecting a fragile heart. But no cloth could contain its glow. Faint golden rays slipped through the seams, painting his hands with warmth. Wherever he walked, people paused. They noticed the shimmer, though they could not understand it. An old woman, her back bent from years of labor, touched Elian's sleeve. "What is it you carry, child?" Should he tell them the truth that inside this lantern lived forgotten dreams, that voices whispered to him in the night? But something within told him to wait. The lantern was not ready to be revealed. It was waiting just as he was. Instead, Elian smiled gently. Only a light for the road ahead. The woman nodded, though her eyes lingered on the glow long after he passed. That evening, when twilight spread its violet veil over the mountains, Elian left the village. His footsteps were quiet upon the earth, his heart heavy with both fear and wonder. He looked back only once. The lantern's glow shimmered across the fields, as if promising to return, but not yet. The path before him was narrow, lined with tall grass and stones that caught the moonlight. The lantern swayed at his side, and with every sway, Elian heard whispers, some soft, some trembling, some so full of longing that his eyes stung with tears. One voice belonged to a child who once dreamed of touching the sky. Another to a poet who had longed to write words that would outlive him. Another to a young girl who wanted to dance on the shore, but had never found the courage. Elian realized the lantern was more than a vessel, it was a chorus, a gathering of human hopes, each one fragile yet unbroken. As night deepened, he reached the edge of the forest. The trees rose like silent sentinels, their branches weaving a tapestry of shadows. Here, the lantern's glow seemed to grow brighter, pushing back the darkness. Fireflies gathered around it, circling in wonder, as though recognizing it as kin. For a moment, Elian stopped. He thought of turning back. The forest was vast and unknown, filled with creatures whose eyes glimmered in the night. But the lantern pulsed gently in his hand, as if whispering courage into his heart. So he stepped forward. With each step, the forest changed. The wind carried scents of moss and pine. The earth softened beneath his feet, and the air grew thick with mystery. The lantern revealed roots twisted like sleeping serpents, and stones worn smooth by forgotten rivers. Yet it also revealed beauty, a moth with wings like silver dust, a stream that glittered as though stars had fallen into it. And then Elian noticed something extraordinary. Whenever the lantern's light touched a tree, faint shapes appeared. Upon its bark, images of people, faces, and moments long past. He realized the forest itself was filled with forgotten dreams, etched into its silent heart. At last, Elian came to a clearing. The moon hung high, bathing the grass in silver. Q placed the lantern upon a stone, and it glowed brighter than ever. The voices inside grew clearer, weaving into a single melodious song of longing, of hope, of journeys unfinished. Elian closed his eyes. For the first time, he understood. The lantern did not simply carry forgotten dreams. It carried the pieces of people's souls they thought were lost, and he had been chosen to carry them forward. When he opened his eyes, the lantern's glow rose like a breath, reaching toward the stars. The fireflies joined, their lights flickering in harmony. Elian felt no fear now, only wonder and the certainty that this journey was just beginning. For somewhere beyond the forest, there were others who had forgotten their dreams, and the lantern longed to find them. The keeper of echoes, the forest, stretched endlessly. Sometimes it flickered gently, as though resting, and other times it shone with a fierce brilliance, lighting the way through tangled roots and mist-laden trails. On the third night, Elian found himself at the edge of a lake. The water was still as glass, reflecting both the moon and the lantern in its surface. Kneeling by the shore, Elian held the lantern close to the water, and the whispers inside grew louder, as though the lake carried their echoes across unseen depths. Suddenly, a ripple spread across the surface. From the mist that hovered above the lake, a figure began to form, tall, cloaked, and carrying a staff crowned with silver feathers. The figure's face was hidden, but their voice was soft and deep, like the resonance of an ancient bell. "You carry it," the figure said, "the vessel of dreams, the light that remembers." Elian's hands tightened around the lantern. "Do you know what it means?" he asked. The figure nodded slowly. "I am the keeper of echoes. I have listened to these voices for countless years, but only one chosen by the lantern can carry them onward. You are that one." Elian lowered his gaze, uncertainty tugging at his heart. "Why me? I am no hero. I am only a boy who found something strange beneath the earth." The keeper's cloak shifted, and the silver feathers glowed faintly in the moonlight. "The lantern does not choose heroes, child. It chooses hearts willing to listen. For dreams are not preserved by strength, but by gentleness." Those words settled deep within Elian, like seeds finding fertile soil. The keeper raised their staff. Faces appeared upon the water, hundreds, then thousands. Some smiling, some weeping, some simply gazing upward with longing. Each face carried a dream once forgotten. Elian felt the weight of them, not as a burden, but as a responsibility. were not his dreams, yet they trusted him. They believed he would carry them where they could shine once more. The keeper spoke again. There is a mountain beyond this forest. Upon its peak lies the well of dawn. It is there the lantern must go. Only in the light of the first sun can forgotten dreams awaken fully. Elian lifted the lantern, its glow flickering with sudden warmth, as though it recognized the path ahead. But the journey will not be easy, the keeper warned. Shadows gather where dreams are abandoned. They will try to silence the lantern, to drown its light. Elian swallowed, fear brushing against his heart. Yet, when he looked at the lantern, at the soft golden glow within, courage returned. I will take it there, he whispered. I will carry them. The keeper inclined their head, and as swiftly as they appeared, they dissolved into the mist, leaving only ripples upon the lake. That night, Elian slept by the shore, the lantern cradled beside him. In his dreams, he walked among fields where children flew kites made of starlight, and poets wrote their words across the sky. Every dream glowed brighter than the last, and Elian realized these voices did not simply ask to be carried. They wanted to live again. When morning came, he rose with steady steps. The forest awaited, and beyond it, the mountain. The lantern glowed at his side, no longer just a vessel of forgotten dreams, but a companion breathing, listening, guiding. And as Elian stepped once more into the shadows of the trees, the whispers inside rose in harmony. He was no longer walking alone. The forest of murmurs, the morning mist clung to the air as Elian entered deeper into the forest. The lantern swayed gently at his side, its light brushing against moss-covered trunks and branches that twisted like ancient arms reaching toward the sky. The silence was not empty. Elian felt eyes upon him, not threatening, but watchful. The trees seemed older here, their bark etched with patterns like runes. Sometimes he imagined he saw shapes hidden within those lines, faces, wings, and fleeting figures that vanished when he blinked. The lantern glowed brighter, and the murmurs grew louder. They were not the voices of people, but of the forest itself, winds sighing, leaves trembling, water dripping from unseen springs. And yet, woven among them were dreams. He heard a child's laugh, fading into echoes, a lullaby sung by a mother who had been gone for centuries, the sound of footsteps on streets that no longer existed. Each fragment slipped into the air like petals falling into a stream. Elian paused at a clearing where sunlight pierced through the canopy, spilling onto a circle of stones. The lantern pulsed softly, urging him forward. As he stepped into the circle, the whispers rose into clarity. A single voice emerged, gentle and trembling. "Do not forget me." Elian froze. His heart raced, not from fear, but from sorrow. Dumb words carried the weight of someone who had once loved deeply, someone whose memory had dissolved into time. "Who are you?" Elian asked, holding the lantern close. The light swirled within, forming the faint outline of a girl. She was young, her hair drifting like strands of silver, her eyes filled with longing. She reached out toward him, though her hand never touched his. "I am a dream once cherished," she whispered. "A song once sung, now silent." Elian's throat tightened. "I will carry you, all of you, I promise." The girl's image flickered, and, with a faint smile, she dissolved into the lantern's glow. The whispers quieted, leaving only the gentle hum of the forest. The path beyond the clearing was darker. Thick roots rose like obstacles, and vines curled across the trail. The air felt heavier, carrying the scent of earth and rain. It was there that Elian first noticed the shadows. They clung to the edges of the trees, shapeless at first, but with a coldness that made his breath shiver. Unlike the whispers, these carried no longing, no tenderness. They were empty, hollow like silence made alive. The lantern flared in response, casting back the darkness. But the shadows lingered, watching, waiting. Elian tightened his grip. "You won't take them," he whispered. "Not while I carry this light." The shadows retreated for now, but Elian knew they would return. The keeper's warning echoed in his mind. Shadows gather where dreams are abandoned. That night, Elian rested beneath the branches of a great oak. The lantern stood beside him, glowing softly, and though the forest was vast, its light made the space around him feel safe as he drifted into sleep. The voices of the lantern wrapped around him like a lullaby, soft, endless, carrying both sorrow and hope. And in his dream, Elian saw the mountain, tall, veiled in mist, its peak touched by the rising sun. The well of dawn awaited him, shimmering like a promise. When he awoke, the forest was quiet, the shadows gone. But in the silence, Elian understood. This journey was no longer about reaching the mountain alone. It was about protecting the dreams until they could breathe once more. And so, with the lantern held close, he walked on, deeper into the forest of murmurs, toward the dawn that waited far beyond the trees. The bridge of echoes, the forest began to thin as Elian walked, and the trees parted to reveal a ravine so deep it seemed to split the earth itself. Mist curled at the bottom, hiding what lay beneath, and the air shimmered with a sound of water. Rushing unseen, across the divide stretched a bridge enchant, fragile, swaying in the wind. Its planks were worn, its ropes frayed, yet it stood as though defying time. The lantern's glow reflected off the damp wood, making the bridge appear alive, breathing with the faint echoes of voices that lingered in the air. Alien paused at the edge, his heart steady but heavy. This was no ordinary crossing. The air here was thick with memory as he stepped onto the first plank. The bridge trembled, and a voice rose from the mist below. Alien. He froze. The voice was familiar. Too familiar. It was his mother's. He gripped the ropes tightly, breath caught in his chest. The sound was impossible. She had been gone since his childhood. And yet, the bridge carried her voice as though she stood beside him. "Do you remember?" the echo said, soft and aching, "the nights I told you stories by the fire. How you would close your eyes before the ending because you trusted the story would always carry you safely home." Alien's throat tightened. Memories surfaced, warmth, lullabies, the gentle hum of a life that had slipped away too soon. He whispered, "Yes, I remember." The bridge creaked, carrying him further across. More voices rose from the mist, weaving together into a chorus. Some he recognized, friends from long ago, elders from his village. Others were strangers, voices from centuries past. Each carried fragments of dreams once held, once lost. A scholar who longed to finish his book. A sailor who never saw the shore again. A child who wished to see the stars one more time. Their echoes filled the air, rising and falling like waves. Halfway across, the lantern glowed brighter, its light cutting through the mist. The voices grew louder, pressing against him, tugging at his heart. For a moment, Alien felt their weight, pulling him down into grief, into longing, into the endless depths of what could have been. His knees weakened. The ropes groaned. Shadows gathered at the edges of the bridge, forming shapes, faceless and hollow. They whispered, not with hope, but with despair. "You cannot carry them all. Leave them, forget them, let them sink." Alien clenched his jaw. He lifted the lantern high, its flame blazing against the gray. The voices of despair hissed, retreating into the mist, while the brighter voices, the voices of dreams, rose. Above them, like a hymn, "I will not let you fade," Alien whispered. "Not while I breathe." The bridge steadied beneath his feet, as though strengthened by his resolve. Step by step, he continued, the chorus following him, until, at last, his feet touched solid ground. On the far side of the ravine, the world was quiet once more. The forest behind him seemed distant, and ahead lay a new path, narrow, winding, leading toward the mountains that now loomed closer on the horizon. The lantern flickered gently, not with strain, but with gratitude, as if the voices within had grown lighter. For a moment, Elian thought he heard laughter, soft, fleeting, like the sound of bells in the wind. He turned once to look back. The bridge swayed gently, the mist curling below. It no longer felt like a place of sorrow, but of remembrance, a passage not of fear, but of connection. And with that, Elian walked forward, carrying the lantern into the unknown, toward the next chapter of his journey. The mountain of silent watchers, the path wound upward, curling along the side of a vast mountain, whose crown vanished into drifting clouds. The air grew thinner, sharper, and the silence deepened until even the sound of Elian's footsteps seemed too loud. The lantern glowed softly in his hand, its light trembling against the rock walls that loomed on either side. Each stone seemed ancient, scarred with cracks that hinted at forgotten time. And then he noticed them, faces carved into the cliffs. Row after row of stone visages stared outward, solemn, weathered, their eyes hollow yet piercing. They stretched upward into the mist, countless and unending, as though the entire mountain had been shaped by the memory of those who once lived. Elian's heart slowed. These were the silent watchers, guardians of dreams that had never reached the light of day. He moved carefully along the path, feeling the weight of their gaze. Though unmoving, the faces seemed alive, as though each one carried a story locked within its stone lips. Some were smooth and gentle, the faces of children and dreamers. Others were stern, the marks of warriors and rulers. And some were broken, their features lost to erosion, their stories hidden forever in silence. The deeper he walked, the more he felt it, the quiet pull of unspoken dreams pressing against his chest. The mountain seemed to breathe its silence, louder than thunder. Finally, he reached a plateau where the path widened into a flat expanse. Here stood the largest face of all, carved into the stone wall before him, towering, ageless. It gazed down with an expression that was neither cruel nor kind, only knowing. The lantern flickered, and then the silence broke. Elian. The voice was deep, resonant, as if spoken by the earth itself. It came not from the air, but from the stone. Why do you carry the lantern? Why do you bear the weight of what was forgotten? Elian's grip tightened. His voice, though quiet, did not waver. Because someone must, because dreams should not die in silence. The stone face was still, but the mountain seemed to shift. With a low rumble, as though it considered his answer. "Many came before you," the voice said. "They faltered. They let the weight break them. Will you do the same?" Elian lifted the lantern, its flame glowing brighter against the gray. "I cannot promise I will not falter," he admitted. "But I will not turn back." The silence returned, and then the great stone face closed its eyes. The mountain trembled. But instead of crumbling, the cliffs began to glow faintly, as though veins of light pulsed through the rock. The carved faces shimmered, their hollow eyes softening, their silence easing into a quiet peace. The path ahead brightened, illuminated not only by the lantern, but by the mountain itself. The silent watchers, once heavy with sorrow, now seemed to guide him forward. No longer a burden, but a blessing. Elian bowed his head gently in gratitude and stepped onward, climbing higher into the clouds. Behind him, the voices of the mountain faded, leaving only the whisper of wind through stone. Yet he felt their presence with him, still watching, guarding, waiting to see if he would endure where others had fallen. And so, lantern in hand, he ascended further into the mist. The river of echoes, the mist thinned as Elian emerged onto a plateau where the mountain gave way to a valley below. At its heart flowed a river unlike any he had ever seen. Its waters shimmered like glass, yet beneath the surface moved, shifting, colors threads of gold, silver, and deep indigo, twisting together as though carrying the night sky within its current. The air was still, but the river was not silent. As Elian drew closer, he heard it, faint voices drifting across the water. At first, only whispers, then clearer snatches of laughter, fragments of lullabies, echoes of conversations long ago. This was not a river of water alone. It was a river of memory. He knelt at its edge, lantern casting a golden arc across the surface. The current caught its reflection and pulled it along, creating the illusion of countless lights drifting away into the distance. When Elian touched the water, the voices surged around him. He heard a child's giggle, sweet and fleeting. He heard the sound of pages turning, a poet reciting a verse that was never finished. He heard tears falling into silence, a dream broken before it could grow. And then he heard something else, his own name, Elian. The sound was unmistakable. It was his mother's voice, gentle, warm, filled with a love that pierced through the haze of the dreamlike world. For a moment, his breath caught. He had not heard that voice in years, not since she had been taken by time itself. Yet, here it was, echoing through the water. The river rippled, and before him rose a figure of light. Not solid, not truly there, but a vision formed from memory. His mother's outline stood in the current, her hands folded, her gaze soft as starlight. "My son," she whispered, her voice carrying like music across the water. "You walk a path few dare to tread, but do not mistake this journey. These dreams you carry are not only of others, they are yours as well." Elian's throat tightened. "I am afraid," he admitted. The lantern feels heavier with every step. Her figure smiled, though sadness touched her eyes. "Fear means you still care, and care is the very flame that keeps the lantern alive." The river glowed brighter around her, and Elian felt warmth spread through his chest, as though her words were not only sound, but light itself entering his heart. Then, just as suddenly, the vision began to dissolve back into the current. Her hand reached toward him, shimmering with fragments of starlight, before vanishing into ripples that stretched endlessly downstream. The voices of the river grew softer again, blending back into whispers of forgotten dreams. Elian stood slowly, the lantern glowing with renewed brilliance. His steps felt lighter. Though the path ahead remained uncertain, he knew now that this journey was not only for the forgotten, it was for him too. For every voice he carried, for every memory that refused to fade. And with that truth, he followed the riverbank as it curved deeper into the valley, the echoes guiding him forward into the night. The bridge of silent bells, the valley narrowed, until Elian reached a place where the river bent sharply, its waters darkening as though carrying shadows with it. Across the current stretched a bridge unlike any he had ever seen. It was ancient, built not of stone or wood, but of silver-white threads that glowed faintly in the dark. They shimmered like strands of moonlight woven together, suspended by unseen hands. Hanging from the threads were small bells, hundreds of them each, one delicate, each one silent. Elian paused at the edge, lantern in hand, listening. The bells should have rung in the night breeze, yet they did not. The silence was so complete that even the river seemed to hush beneath it. A voice whispered in his mind, soft as the mist, "This is the bridge of silent bells. Each bell is a dream unspoken, wish that was never given voice." Elian's chest tightened as he placed a foot upon the bridge. The lantern's glow wavered, casting long shadows over the threads. They swayed under his weight, but no sound came. Only silence, thick and heavy, as though the air itself held its breath. With every step forward, he felt the weight of unspoken words pressing against him. Dreams that people had buried in their hearts, but never dared to share. Love unconfessed, apologies unsaid, hopes left unspoken. The bells trembled as he passed, releasing not sound, but feelings. A rush of sorrow, a sudden spark of joy, a pang of regret. Halfway across, Elian stopped. One bell swayed more violently than the others, its glow faint, as though desperate to be heard. He reached out, fingertips brushing the metal, and in that instant the silence cracked. A voice spilled out, not a whisper, not a scream, but a trembling. Confession, I was afraid to speak, so I never did. The words pierced Elian's heart. They belonged not to him, but to someone else's soul who had once carried a dream, but had left it buried in silence. He closed his eyes and lifted the lantern higher, letting its light touch the bell. The flame inside flickered, then steadied, and the bell glowed in response. For the first time, it rang. A single, clear note filled the night. Gentle, fragile, yet beautiful. The sound carried across the valley, echoing against the mountains, stirring the river into ripples of gold. One dream, once silenced, was now given voice as he reached the far end of the bridge. More bells began to stir. Not all at once, but here and there, faint chimes weaving into the air, like the beginnings of a forgotten melody. Elian turned back once. The bridge shimmered behind him, no longer silent, but alive with the music of dreams that had finally been spoken. With renewed strength, he pressed on, lantern glowing brighter than before. The path awaited, and somewhere beyond the valley, the next chapter of the forgotten dreams called to him. The garden of echoing shadows. Elian stepped off the bridge of silent bells and found himself standing before a vast archway of twisted vines. The vines pulsed faintly, as though veins of light ran through them, and beyond lay a hidden garden. The air grew cooler as he entered. His lantern's glow fell upon rows of trees with bark as dark as obsidian, their leaves a shimmering silver. Between them stretched paths lined with stone markers, each carved with symbols he did not recognize. At first, the garden seemed still, too still. No birds sang, no wind moved the branches. But then, as Elian's footsteps echoed softly against the path, something strange began to happen. From the shadows at the base of the trees, figures rose. They were not solid, but echoes, wisps of shapes that flickered like smoke caught in light. They followed him silently, their forms shifting, as though trying to remember who they once were. The lantern trembled in his hand, and then the whispers came. Each shadow that moved beside him released a voice, faint and wavering. I wanted to be seen. I was forgotten, too soon. Did my dream matter? The words wrapped around Elian like a chorus of longing. His chest grew heavy. These shadows were not malicious. They were the remnants of dreams that had been remembered by no one. Echoes of lives once bright that had slowly faded away. For a moment, Elian wanted to turn back. The weight of so much loss pressed against him. Yet the flame within his lantern flared brighter, as though urging him forward. He lifted it high. Its golden light spilled across the shadows, and as it touched them, something miraculous happened. One by one, the shadows began to shift. Their forms sharpened an outline of a child clutching a book, a musician holding an unseen instrument, a traveler reaching for a road that no longer existed. The lantern did not restore them to life, but it gave them clarity. For a brief moment, their dreams returned, shining in the air around them like sparks. Elian stood in awe as the garden filled with visions, paintings that had never been completed, songs that had never been sung, journeys that had never begun. Each shadow revealed the dream it once carried, and then, with a soft sigh, faded back into the silence. But the dreams remained glimmers of light that floated upward like fireflies, gathering above the trees. Elian understood then. His lantern was not meant only to carry light, was meant to collect the forgotten, to give voice and shape to the dreams that the world had left behind. The path through the garden stretched ahead, winding between rows of silver trees. With each step, more shadows emerged, and each time his lantern lit them, they revealed a fragment of beauty that might otherwise have been lost forever. When he finally reached the far side of the garden, he turned back. Behind him, the air shimmered with hundreds of glowing fragments, drifting upward toward the night sky. The once dark garden now looked like a constellation come to life for the first time. The valley itself seemed to breathe more easily, as though some ancient weight had lifted at Leah and pressed his hand against the lantern's warm glass. It was fuller now, brighter, and in its flame he thought he saw something new, reflection of himself, walking not only for his own sake, but for all the dreams he carried with him. The journey was far from over, but the garden had whispered its truth. Forgotten dreams could echo again if only someone was willing to carry their light. The river of silent reflections beyond the garden of echoing shadows. The path descended into a valley where moonlight pooled like silver water. At its heart ran a river broad, dark, and impossibly still. Its surface was so smooth that it looked less like water and more like a mirror stretched across the earth. Elian approached the bank, holding his lantern close. The flame within flickered as though uncertain, casting ripples of light across the river's surface. When he leaned closer, he realized it was not his reflection staring back at him. It was himself, but older. His reflection showed a man with tired eyes and streaks of silver in his hair, carrying the same lantern, yet heavier, as if burdened by years of journeys untold. The sight made Elian step back, his breath quickening. The river was not ordinary water, was memory, possibility, and truth woven together. It showed not who he was, but who he could become. He knelt at the river's edge, letting the whispers of water drift into his ears. They were soft at first, like distant voices carried on the current. You will walk long roads. You will carry more than light. Dreams demand a keeper. The words shimmered in the water, written in ripples of silver. Elian's lantern pulsed brighter in answer, as though agreeing with the river's whispers. Then the current shifted. From its depths, visions rose to the surface, fragments of lives he did not know. A poet staring at an empty page. A mother reaching for a child who had gone too soon. A sculptor whose work lay unfinished in the dust. Their reflections danced on the water, fragile and trembling. Elian understood. The river carried the reflections of all forgotten dreams, waiting for someone to see them, even if only once. He dipped his fingers into the water. The surface rippled outward, and in that moment, the lantern's flame leapt higher, casting golden streaks across the river. The reflections shifted. They were no longer just sorrowful faces and abandoned dreams. They began to glow smiles that had been hidden, voices raised in laughter, songs unfinished yet full of hope. The river had not only stored loss, Key had preserved beauty too. Elian sat in silence, watching as the lantern's light revealed both the weight and wonder of forgotten lives. He realized something important. His task was not to erase sorrow, nor to change what had been lost. It was to witness, to carry forward the light of what had once been loved. When he finally rose to his feet, the river seemed calmer, as though content that its memories had been seen. His reflection now showed only himself, no older, no burdened. Just Elian, with the lantern glowing steady in his hand. A stone bridge arched across the river ahead, carved with faded runes. As he stepped onto it, he felt the river's whisper once more, softer now, almost like a blessing. Carry them well, for you are the keeper of what the world forgets. Elian crossed, the night air cool against his face. Behind him, the river of silent reflections shimmered like a vast mirror of stars. Ahead, The path curved into darkness once more, waiting for his light. The bridge of whispering names, the bridge that carried Elian across the river, was no ordinary crossing. Its stones were weathered and ancient, their surfaces etched with runes that glowed faintly beneath the lantern's light. Each step he took awakened a murmur, as though the stones themselves spoke in hushed tones. At first, he thought it was the wind, but when he paused, he realized the whispers were names, soft, fragile names, some spoken like lullabies, others trembling with longing. Names of people he had never met, yet each carried the weight of a dream, once cherished and then lost to time. Elian slowed his steps, letting the sound wash over him. Amara, Lucian, Celine, Kale. One by one, the names drifted into the night, carried forward by the echoing stones. The bridge was not simply a path, it was a memorial. Each name belonged to a dream that had faded, to a story left unfinished. He pressed his hand against one of the glowing runes, and for an instant he saw a vision, fleeting and delicate like mist. A child chasing fireflies in a meadow. A sailor staring at the horizon, waiting for a ship that never came. An artist painting by candlelight, her colors fading into darkness before the work was complete. The visions vanished as quickly as they came, leaving only the echo of their names lingering in Elian's chest. The lantern in his hand grew warmer. Its light seemed to hum in harmony with the bridge, as if it recognized the names, as if it carried fragments of those very lives. Elian whispered into the silence, his voice barely louder than a breath. "I will not forget you," the bridge responded. The runes glowed brighter, and the whispers softened as though soothed by the promise. He continued walking, step by careful step, until he reached the center of the bridge. There, the whispers grew louder, countless names overlapping, weaving into a chorus of remembrance. It was overwhelming, yet strangely gentle, like 1,000 lullabies sung at once. For a moment, Elian felt as though he carried not just a lantern, but an entire world within its flame. When he finally reached the far end of the bridge, the whispers faded into silence. The runes dimmed, leaving only the soft glow of his lantern to light the path forward behind him. The bridge stood quietly, its stones now still, as though waiting for the next traveler brave enough to listen. Ahead, the path rose into a hill, crowned with towering trees. Their branches twisted toward the sky, leaves shimmering faintly like glass. The flame flickered with quiet determination. The journey was growing heavier. Yet he knew now, each step carried not only his own story, but the countless voices that the world had left behind, and he would carry them onward through the darkness. The forests of glass, trees Beyond the bridge rose a forest unlike anything Eliane had ever seen. The trees shimmered in the pale glow of moonlight, their trunks translucent as if carved from crystal. Every branch was fragile, gleaming, and every leaf reflected the lantern's flame like shards of broken mirrors. The air was silent to silent. Not even the rustle of wind stirred the glass-like canopy. Yet as Eliane stepped forward, the forest awakened. Each footfall sent a ripple of sound through the trees. A delicate chime, a crystalline note, as though he had stepped into a vast cathedral of living instruments. Eliane paused, listening. The forest was singing, but it was not music in the ordinary sense. What a memory-made sound. When he touched the trunk of a tree, the glass vibrated gently, and an image bloomed inside it. A girl releasing a paper lantern into the sea. A boy clutching a journal. Words scribbled on every page but never read aloud. An old woman smiling as she held a faded photograph close to her heart. Each tree held a dream, fragile, unspoken, yet preserved in shimmering silence. But the forest was not only a place of beauty. It was a test. As Eliane walked deeper, the trees began to reflect him. Shards of his own memories glimmered on their surfaces, moments he had forgotten, faces he had lost. He saw his own childhood dream of becoming a painter, a dream he had buried. When life grew heavy with burdens, he saw his first lantern, given to him as a child, glowing faintly in his small hands. The glass trees whispered not with words, but with echoes of his own heart. It was overwhelming. The farther he went, the louder the forest sang, until every step was met with a chorus of fragile chimes that sounded like laughter. Sorrow and hope all at once. The lantern in his hands flickered wildly. Its flame pulsed as though responding to the forest's song, as if it wanted to merge with the countless forgotten dreams around him. Eliane clutched it tighter. "No," he whispered softly, "I will not let you fade. I will carry you through." At his words, the forest shimmered brighter. For a moment, every tree blazed with a brilliant light, the glass branches trembling like stars ready to fall. Then, slowly, the brightness dimmed, leaving behind only a path of glowing leaves guiding him forward. The forest had tested him, accepted him. At the edge of the forest stood a towering arch of crystal, its surface alive with swirling patterns of light. It pulsed like a heartbeat, waiting, as if it were a gateway, not just to another place, but to the heart of the lantern's true purpose. Eliane took a deep breath. The bridge had given him the names. The forest had given him the memories. Now, beyond this arch, awaited the truth of the dreams he carried, and he stepped forward. The flames secret the arch of crystal closed behind Eliane as he stepped through. sealing the sound of the glass forest in silence. Before him stretched a vast chamber of shadows, lit only by the trembling glow of his lantern. The air was heavy, here thick with an unseen weight. It pressed against his chest, slowing his breath, urging him to turn back. But the lantern pulled him forward, as though it knew this was where it belonged. At the center of the chamber rose a pool of still water, dark as obsidian. Elian approached cautiously, holding the lantern over it. The flame wavered, and then the water reflected not his face, but 1,000 others, children, elders, strangers whose lives he had never known. Each face flickered with longing, sorrow, or hope. Some were smiling, others wept silently, but all looked at him as if begging him to see. Elian gasped, clutching the lantern tighter. What are you?" he whispered. The flame pulsed once, then flared. Its light spilled outward, weaving itself into shapes, human shapes. The chamber filled with glowing figures made of soft firelight. They were the voices of forgotten dreams. One stepped forward, a young woman with eyes like fading stars. Voice was both gentle and sorrowful. "We are the remnants of dreams that were never fulfilled. The songs unsung, the words unspoken, the journeys never taken. We are what people left behind when the world grew too heavy for them to carry us." Her form flickered like candle smoke, but her words lingered in the air. Alien's chest tightened. He understood now. The lantern he carried did not hold just one dream, was a vessel for countless forgotten ones. Each flame was a fragment of yearning left behind by someone who could no longer believe in it. The voices continued, surrounding him in a sorrowful choir. "We are not lost. We wait for someone who will carry us. Someone who will remember us when the world has forgotten." Tears burned at the corner of Elian's eyes. He thought of the names on the bridge. He thought of the shimmering glass trees. They weren't just symbols, they were lives, etched into eternity through their forgotten wishes. His own heart ached with the weight of his abandoned dream of painting. A dream buried long ago. Now he realized his lantern's flame was alive because he still believed. Even faintly, even quietly, he had never fully let go of wonder. And that, perhaps, was why the lantern had chosen him. The figures began to fade, their glow sinking back into the flame. The young woman's voice lingered one last time. "Do not let us die again. Carry us until we can shine where we belong." The chamber darkened, leaving Elian alone with the lantern. But its flame was different now. No longer small and trembling, it burned strong, golden, as though infused with countless souls. Elian whispered into the silence, "I will not fail you." And the path ahead appeared, lit by a narrow trail of fireflies, guiding him to the next final part of his journey. The trial of Sacrifice Lian followed the trail of fireflies through the cavern of shadows, until it led him to a towering gate of stone. Upon its surface, countless symbols were carved: spirals, circles, and flames, all glowing faintly. As if a live dot, the lantern in his hand pulsed brighter. The gate rumbled. A voice rose from the stone, deep and resonant, carrying the weight of ages, bearer of the forgotten flame. "You have seen what lies within. But to release the dreams, you must pay the cost. A vessel must give of itself, or the lantern will remain bound forever." Elian's breath caught. He clutched the lantern tighter. "What do you mean, cost?" the voice replied. "A dream cannot be carried without sacrifice. If you wish to release them, you must pour part of your own soul into the flame. Your own dream must become one with theirs." Elian trembled. Skies he dreamed of capturing with brush and canvas. That dream had once been his heart, but he had buried it beneath duty and silence. And now, they were asking him to give it away. The weight of the moment pressed against him. If he gave it, the dream would no longer belong to him, would no longer be his. It would join the flame, lost in the chorus of countless others. The chamber grew quiet. The flame flickered as though waiting for his choice. Elian knelt before the lantern, his voice breaking. "My dream was to paint the world in colors no one had seen. But I never tried. I let fear take it from me. If giving it means these forgotten souls can live again, then let it be so." His hands shook as he held the lantern close to his chest. The flame leaped from the wick and sank into his heart. Heat rushed through him, sharp and searing, yet strangely beautiful, like being filled with sunlight. He gasped, clutching at his chest, tears streaking down his face. In that moment, he saw flashes of himself as a child, painting with sticks in the dirt, mixing colors from berries, dreaming of canvases that reached the sky. And then, the vision faded. The dream was gone. When he opened his eyes, the lantern burned brighter than ever before. The flame no longer felt like a single light, was an entire galaxy, swirling with countless stars. The stone gate shuddered, cracks of golden light splitting through its surface. The voice spoke once more. "Softer now. You have given what was most precious. Only such sacrifice can unlock the way. The dreams are ready to be released." The gate slowly opened, revealing a vast horizon of endless night sky beyond, filled with constellations waiting to be rekindled. Elian stepped forward, his heart hollow yet strangely full. The final part of the journey was waiting. The sky of eternal dreams. Elian stood at the threshold of the gate, the lantern blazing in his hands like a sun born from sorrow and sacrifice. Before him stretched an endless sky, vast, silent, and waiting. It was as if the heavens themselves had been empty for centuries, yearning to be painted again. The voice of the cavern whispered one last time, "Release them, and they will live among the stars forever. They will no longer be forgotten. And though your own dream has been given, your heart will shine with theirs." Elian lifted the lantern high. The flame inside began to roar, its light spilling upward like rivers of fire. One by one, sparks burst from its tiny lanterns of their own need, carrying a dream, a mother's wish for her child to be safe, a child's hope to fly, a poet's yearning for words to be remembered, a painter's longing for colors beyond the world. Thousands, then millions, rising into the dark sky. They scattered like seeds, blossoming into constellations until the heavens blazed brighter than they had in ages. The world below stirred. Villagers awoke, stepping from their homes. Travelers paused on their lonely paths. Children lifted their hands to the sky in awe. They all saw it, the night reborn with light. Lanterns drifting upward, weaving new constellations. Forgotten dreams no longer buried, but shining, eternal. And though none of them knew Elian's name, they felt his gift in their hearts. Hope returned to them. Dreams, once abandoned, flickered alive once more. Elian watched the sky with tears glistening in his eyes. His chest ached where his own dream once lived, but he did not feel empty. He felt vast, for he realized something. His dream was fulfilled. Not on a canvas of cloth, not with pigments of earth, but on the grandest canvas of all the sky, itself painted in eternal fire. The lantern in his hands finally dimmed. Its duty was done. He set it gently on the ground, bowing his head in gratitude. The voice returned, soft and fading, like the last note of a lullaby. Dreams are never truly lost. They are only waiting for someone brave enough to carry them. As dawn broke, Elian stepped away from the gate. Behind him, the sky still glowed with lanterns drifting among the stars, a reminder that even the forgotten could find a home in the light. And with each step he took, the fireflies followed, as if carrying the whispers of the countless souls he had freed. Elian smiled faintly through his tears. The lanterns had carried forgotten dreams, but in doing so, they had given birth to something eternal. A sky where no dream would ever be forgotten again.